Oh, good evening, everybody. Actually, good morning to Mr. Demian. At first, on behalf of Bengal Library Association, I welcome you all in this BLA webinar series 8. Today's topic is VuFind open source and the power of the community. Today, we have three giants in a single row. At first, Mr. Demian Katz, the lead developer of VuFind in India, in the world. Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay, from whom we know the term quote-unquote VuFind in India, and Mr. Vimal Kumar Bhajapallai. He is the inspiration of the youngster of the librarians and library professionals. So at first, on behalf of Bengal Library Association, I welcome you all in this prestigious session of BLA Webinar 2020 Series 8. At first, we want to say something about the purpose of the today's lecture. No, as a library organization, we have tried several years to develop an union catalog. So what should be the common platform? We have several platforms, we have tried several things, several platforms, but it doesn't suit anything. Okay, so I think Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay, in an article in Koha 2017, the common platform of Koha lover in India, he pointed out the VuFind may be a solution for this. So we have tested several times, and finally we have developed the system, the union catalog designed by Bengal Library Association on the basis of VuFind. So that's the first thing we have tested VuFind. It's show its beauty, pros and cons, and any other things. So, but we want to know about VuFind more and more. For this, when Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay approached us to organize a lecture on library discovery system, especially with Mr. Demian Katz, and we have approved it. And we are very much fortunate that you gave us your kind consent, and also Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay, all credit goes to him, and also Mr. Vimal Kumar Bhajapallai. Now, over to Vimal Kumar Bhajapallai for conducting the total webinar and also introduction and other things. So please, may I request Mr. Vimal Kumar to start your program, and also introduction and other things. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, all of you. I am Vimal Kumar from Kerala. This is a very unique webinar topic, and the Indians are not familiar with the VuFind, because the difficulty with the installation many are stay away from VuFind. Anyway, we are very lucky to get the lead developer of VuFind, Falway Memorial Library, part of Villanova University, that's located in Pennsylvania State, United States of America. Is a lead developer of VuFind. Anyway, I will not consume too much time. On behalf of all of present here, I welcome Mr. Demian Katz to start the presentation.
Thank you very much. I will get my screen sharing going here. Are you able to see my slides now?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. So thank you everyone for coming. As was said, I'm Demian Katz. I've been the lead developer of the VuFind project for about 10 years, and I've been a big fan of open source technology for longer than that. And so I'm here to talk about a few things. First of all, I will tell you a little bit about VuFind, what it can do, how it's developed, and what's coming up. I'll then step back a little and talk about open source software development more broadly, the advantages and costs of using it, and how anyone can participate. And finally, I'll talk about how VuFind and open source relate to the profession of librarianship, and what lessons we can learn as library professionals and/or software developers about the future. My goal today is to introduce you to a lot of useful tools and ideas. I obviously can't go into great depth on anything, so of course I will be happy to talk to anyone afterwards who wants more information, and I will be sharing my contact information at the end. I can also give you these slides. There are a lot of links So don't worry about writing things down. I'll make sure that you can get the whole slide deck. So let's start by talking about what VuFind actually is. It is a flexible search engine and discovery interface for providing access to library content and user functionality. It is free and open source. It's designed to be very configurable so that you can change its behavior without having to change its code. But if you want to change its code, it's designed to be easy to customize and easy to extend. And it's supported by a worldwide community of developers and users who all work together to improve upon it. This was really built to address a need in the library community to provide user interfaces that could compete with things like Google. So let's talk about what it can support and how it is built. It's built using all open source tools, so it uses the widely used PHP programming language as its basis, the Laminas components to provide common functionality, Laminas being a widely used PHP library, and it uses Apache Solr as its internal search engine, which offers really robust searching and faceting capabilities. It's designed to be able to index records of all different kinds, including MARC records and many common types of XML. So you can use it to provide access to just about any kind of metadata that your institution might produce. It also integrates with many popular library systems, including open source ones like Koha and Folio, as well as commercial ones like Alma. So it gives you the ability to let your users access their account information and find out about availability status, regardless of what backend systems you're using. It can also be layered on top of commercial search tools like EBSCO Discovery Service, Summon, and WorldCat, which gives you the power to take more control over the user experience provided by these tools if you happen to be a subscriber. So let's look at the features. As I mentioned, this was initially designed to provide something useful for users who are accustomed to search engines like Google. So you have a single search box, you type things into it, you get results back. It also has faceted navigation. You can see the sidebar here labeled narrow search, which allows users to explore your collection based on characteristics of the records. And it uses relevance ranking. You can customize how the search results are ordered, which types of data fields are most important in search relevance ranking, and so forth. As I mentioned, this system also provides users access to common library functions like placing holds on items, renewing their books, and so forth, all through a common interface. There's also user-oriented functionality. Users can curate lists of records that are useful for their research. They can comment on things, they can add tags, and so forth. All of that is managed through the VuFind platform while referencing records in your index or in third-party indexes like EDS or Summon. The system also provides other commonly used search engine conventions like spelling suggestions and drop-downs full of automatic suggestions based on the user's typing. VuFind also integrates with a variety of third-party systems for augmenting content. So, for example, it can pull in book cover images from a number of different third-party services. It can link out to book preview services like Google Books Preview. You can incorporate book reviews and author biographies from services like Syndetics or from Wikipedia, and so on. The system uses responsive design, which makes it equally useful for desktop computer users and for mobile device users. The screenshot here shows on the left how a search result screen looks in a desktop web browser. On the right, how it would look on a smaller device like a phone. So certain elements of the interface will move around or collapse to accommodate the screen real estate. So this lets you reach the broadest possible audience without having to maintain multiple user interfaces. The system has built-in support for generating citations in a variety of commonly used formats, and for exporting records to bibliographic management tools and to other data formats. Finally, the user interface is internationalized. At present, we have more than 30 translations of the interface available. The screenshot here shows just a handful of the languages that are supported. So this enables the use of the software throughout the world and to accommodate audiences where different people speak different languages. VuFind is incredibly feature-rich. So in addition to all of the things I've shown you, there are constantly new functions being added. There are a lot of things that can be changed in small and subtle ways, as well as large features that can be enabled or disabled. So it can sometimes be a challenge to even know what all VuFind is capable of. So if you want to learn more, a few recommendations are to check our changelog in our wiki. Every time we release a new version, we list all of the new functionality that is added there. And so by browsing through the history of the software, you can learn about a lot of the major new features. You can also look at VuFind's configuration files. Since the software is highly configurable, the configuration files really show everything that is possible, and they are commented in great detail to explain what all of the settings mean. And of course, if you don't want to have to figure it out by yourself, you can ask the community. If there's something you want to do with VuFind, please reach out. You may find that someone is already doing what you need and can help you. And if not, you may find collaborators willing to build something new. And I'll talk more about how to reach out to the community very shortly. So the VuFind community at present is centered at Villanova University, where the project was started, but it is, of course, a worldwide collaboration. What Villanova does at present is host a lot of the project infrastructure, like the website, the issue tracker, and so forth. We manage some of the community communications, such as hosting monthly calls to discuss the software. We also do a lot of the software development, and in particular, we are the central point that takes care of providing feedback on other people's contributions and merging everything together into working software. So it's a lot of responsibility, but it is very much supported by developers worldwide. A relatively recent development in VuFind is membership in the Open Library Foundation. The Open Library Foundation is a relatively new organization that provides sort of an institution-neutral home to open source projects, which helps to ensure that they are sustainable beyond the plans of any single institution. The OLF was initially created to provide a home for Folio, which is a new open source library platform. And it has since absorbed Reshare, which is a resource sharing platform, GoKB, which is a knowledge base, Coral, which is an electronic resources management platform, and now VuFind. So VuFind still remains heavily supported by Villanova, but by joining the Open Library Foundation, we also have support by an external entity that will ensure that this thing continues even if Villanova's plans change in the future, which I don't anticipate, but it's always good to have contingency plans. Joining the OLF also supports collaboration and cooperation between projects. So for example, the VuFind community and the Folio community have been working together very closely to ensure that these two projects work together well. And the Open Library Foundation hosts annual conferences called WolfCon, the World Open Library Foundation Conference, where representatives of all of the projects can work together and share with the broader community what's going on within those projects. If you are interested in participating in the community, either by joining development of the software, becoming a user, asking for help, or just learning more, there are a lot of things you can do. We host several mailing lists, some for general questions, some for technical matters. All are free to join, and you can find them through the VuFind.org website. As I already mentioned, we hold monthly community calls where we make decisions about future development, provide updates, and since last year have begun doing monthly tutorials about different aspects of VuFind, which are recorded, and those recordings can also be viewed through the website. We also have annual summits where developers have in the past been able to get together in person to work together, though this year, because of the pandemic, we will be holding a completely virtual online international summit the last week in September, which all are welcome to join. You can also open JIRA tickets in our issue tracker if there are features that you need that don't exist yet. And of course, you can contribute code through our GitHub page where we manage all of our developments. VuFind has pretty reliably had 2 releases every year for many years now. Historically, in the summer, we issue a major release which updates the architecture of the software, brings things up to date. And this is the place where if we have to make significant backward incompatible changes, we get them rolled out and stabilized. And then usually in the late fall or early winter, we put out a feature release that adds more functionality without breaking backward compatibility with the previous release. So this year, VuFind 7 is coming out July 20th, and this includes some major upgrades. As I mentioned, VuFind is built on a set of components called Laminas, which used to be known as Zend Framework. So VuFind 7 fully transitions from Zend Framework to Laminas. It also switches to using the Symfony console components for its command line tools, replacing the Zend version, which is no longer used. There's a big emphasis on web accessibility. So the themes in this release will be improved to better support screen readers and other accessibility devices. There's also going to be support for indexing records from Archive Space, which is the leading open source archives management platform at the moment. And of course, there are many other smaller features and fixes. You can see the changelog on our webpage to learn more. Then, as I mentioned, early next year, we'll have VuFind 7.1, which will add a couple of significant new features, including a brand new theme designed to meet modern design standards, since our existing themes, though they work well, haven't been redesigned in several years and may look a little out of date in some ways. We'll also be adding the ability to support record versions so that different versions of the same book can be grouped together logically to help users better find alternate editions and so forth. Then, of course, following our usual pattern, VuFind 8 will come out in summer of 2021. And the features targeted there will be determined in our road mapping session at the International VuFind Summit in September, as release planning is a major function of all of our summit events. So let's move on from VuFind to open source more broadly. As I mentioned, I've been a longtime fan of open source software. I think that it makes a lot of sense to share code rather than commoditize it. And it has been a great pleasure to work with the VuFind community for the past 10 or more years. Prior to working on VuFind, I did do some work in private software development. And one of the great joys of joining VuFind was that early in my career with VuFind, I spent a day working on a solution to a difficult problem. And I went home not having solved it and thinking about how I would deal with it the next day. And when I returned in the morning, someone on the other side of the world who had been working while I was sleeping had solved the problem for me. And that was just a revelation of the power of teamwork in open source communities, because in private software development, no one would ever have solved my problem for me. But anyway, let's talk about the broad advantages of open source. Of course, there's the fact that there are no licensing costs. You can use the software for free. There's the community development, testing, and support of the software. A successful open source project that's used by many people has also been looked at and tested by many people. So you can be pretty confident that it will work correctly and that you can get help if you have trouble. There's the transparency of open source. You can look at all of the code, so you know for certain what the software is doing. If you have a question, you can get an answer. There's no secrecy. You're also independent from any particular vendor. When you're using commercial software, you are to some extent at the mercy of the person selling you the software, and they have a certain amount of power over you because they control the software and what it does. And of course, with open source, you can customize your software given the appropriate skills. You don't have to ask someone else to do it for you and wait for them to agree that it's worth doing. So all of these things are very empowering. But of course, the flip side of the coin is it takes responsibility to take full advantage. So let's talk about the costs of open source. The software itself is free. There are no licensing costs, but you need skilled staff to install it, run it, and maintain it. And that, of course, comes with costs. I personally think that investing in staff can bring a greater value than paying someone to sell you software, but it has its own challenges and risks because hiring staff can be difficult, retaining staff can be difficult, and of course, it's expensive. Similarly, open source communities are wonderful and are a great source of support, but to get the most out of the community, you really need to actively participate in it. In my experience, open source developers are very friendly and they genuinely want to help, but they also have time constraints and they are not being paid to solve your problems for you. So there's generally an expectation that if you ask a question and get an answer, you have the ability to act on that answer and also to share the responsibility of supporting other users once you gain experience. So you have to sort of plan for that. It's a two-way street. Open source sustainability in general is challenging. An open source project needs to have some kind of leadership, and without strong institutional support, that doesn't always stay around forever. So again, that ties in with active participation in the community. If you value an open source project, you need to really think about contributing both staff and potentially money to keep that project alive. And that's why organizations like the Open Library Foundation can be valuable, because they provide ways of supporting sustainability and helping guide that work. Finally, one of the weaknesses of perhaps not just open source, perhaps all software, but particularly open source, is documentation. Because open source is generally volunteer built and supported, documentation tends to be one of the last things to be thought about, and it can often be out of date. Again, the code is often the most definitive way to understand how something works. So you have to be prepared to sometimes have to dive into code to understand things. In the VuFind community, we are really making strong efforts to have good documentation, but even with good documentation and the best efforts, it's an ongoing challenge to keep things up to date. So some personal responsibility is needed. I'd also like to just take a moment to talk about some of the tools that can be really valuable to open source communities. Because while you can participate in open source development and use open source tools without all of these things, understanding them will often make your life a great deal easier. So of course, communication tools are critical. Open source communities work best when we can all talk to each other. And so, you know, for example, in VuFind, we have mailing lists. We use Slack for real-time communication. Another tool that's important to understand is dependency managers. which are tools that download multiple open source packages and sort of make them available. As I mentioned, VuFind is built on top of dozens of other projects. Part of the power of open source is sharing resources and not having to reinvent things. But when you have so many pieces, you find yourself needing tools to actually manage the composition of those pieces. So for example, VuFind uses Composer for managing its PHP components and NPM for managing some of its JavaScript tools. Becoming familiar with these will be helpful if you plan on getting into VuFind development. Integrated development environments are also useful. These are tools for editing code. A lot of people start out just editing code using a simple text editor like Notepad, but taking the extra time to learn about an IDE can really save you a lot of trouble. They do a lot of work for you, correcting errors as you type, providing direct access to documentation and so forth. So if you're going to be doing programming, I strongly encourage you to learn how to use an IDE. I personally have been using VS Code, which is Microsoft's open source IDE, for the past couple of years. I find it really powerful and easy to use. It's worth a look. Code quality tools are also helpful. These are various tools that will analyze your code by running tests, correcting style issues, looking for standard bad patterns, and report back to you. This helps a community maintain a standard look and feel of their code. It helps detect errors that people haven't yet noticed. VuFind uses all of the code tools listed on this slide. They're very helpful. Finally, version control and collaboration tools are vital to open source development. When you edit code, it's really helpful to understand what you have changed and what other people have changed in the past. We use Git and GitHub. This provides the full history of the development of the software for many years. When troubleshooting or trying to find out how a bug was introduced, having the documentation of all of the change history available is just vitally useful. So if you plan to program, learn to use version control. It is just perhaps the single most crucial tool that new developers perhaps don't always know about. So having talked about VuFind and open source, I'd like to step back and talk about some of the lessons I've learned about how these things can relate to librarianship and how they can improve what we do. So one thing that is a real lesson of VuFind is that systems change a lot for a lot of reasons. Your library may get a better deal on a new library management system and decide to migrate, or it may simply be that some tool goes out of date and needs to be replaced with something else. But just because you change a backend system, that doesn't mean that your user's experience should change. Because let's face it, people don't generally like change. And by putting a layer like VuFind on top of other systems, this gives you the power to keep your user experience the same and make it independent of how you're managing your data in the back end. Of course, the flip side of that is that sometimes there are good reasons to change your user experience. And again, by having a single piece of software dedicated to user experience means that when you do need to change something, you only have to do it in that one place. So it's valuable to think about layers and interrelationships as you develop your systems so that you can isolate things from one another, which insulates your end users. Another thing that comes up a lot when working with VuFind, though it's certainly not unique to VuFind, is that when you look at data in a different way, you will often find problems that can be easily fixed. I'm sure most of us with library catalogs have records that have been collected over the course of years or decades. And when you index them into a faceted search index like VuFind, this sometimes brings interesting anomalies to the top. So by looking at specific fields and looking at trends across a collection, you sometimes learn things that have been lurking but not noticed for a long time. And even if you're not using VuFind for this, a tool like OpenRefine is another way of analyzing a large set of data and finding out things that perhaps aren't obvious when just looking at individual records. Another lesson, and this ties in with what I've said about user experience, is that the way librarians communicate with users has changed a lot. People have always been shy about in-person interaction, but with the web, it's now much easier to avoid talking to other people. And yet, we still have librarians in our libraries who can offer really valuable services. And so we need to think about ways of making that apparent through our web interfaces. Just as one example, at Villanova, when a user does a search, we look at the subjects coming back within the search results. We use that to identify a librarian who is familiar with those subjects, and we display a little box saying, if you need more help, you can talk to this person. Little things like that can go a long way toward making sure that your users realize that there are people who can help them, and connecting those people for best results. Another aspect of this is that web interface design is in some ways the new collection development. We still have books on our shelves, and those are still valuable resources, but that is in some cases just a small sliver of what we offer in terms of content because of all of the things that are available electronically. And so you really need to think about how you present information to your users, because this is often the front line of access to the library. And there is so much information that managing it in the most understandable way is really important to ensure good results for our users. So again, VuFind is one tool that gives you power over organizing and arranging search results and labeling things and providing extra information. But thinking these things through is really important and valuable. And I think it needs to be part of what we do as librarians. And sort of summarizing all of this, agility is critical to success. We need to be able to change quickly. We need to be able to try things and adjust based on what we see. And open source can be a really good way to be agile, because it gives us the power to change things on our own and experiment without having to pay someone else or ask someone else to do it for us. But of course, life is not easy in the digital age. There are challenges and threats that we need to think about and be aware of. So one thing that certainly concerns me is the proliferation of opaque and commercially motivated information systems. So, I've mentioned Google several times, and Google is a great, useful tool, but Google's motivation is not necessarily to help people. Google's motivation is to make money by selling advertising. And so that complicates things. Additionally, the way that the major search engines operate has become more and more subtle and hard to understand. In the 90s, when search engines first began, it was very easy to explain basically how they work by looking for words on web pages and so forth. But now there's more and more artificial intelligence being incorporated. There's more geographic layers being added to things. It becomes harder to know how this works behind the scenes. It makes it harder to explain to users how their searches are being fulfilled, which I think all emphasizes the importance of the librarian's role in training users to think critically about information and to do some evaluation of what they see, especially as malicious use of incorrect information just grows and grows. So I think this is a very important thing we all need to be responsible for. Aside from information seeking and ethics, rapid technological change is just a reality now. Things are growing and changing faster than ever, which means that every time we set up a piece of technology, we have to realize that it's going to change and we're going to have to be responsible for maintaining it. This is what is known as technical debt. And it's an important part of all of our planning going forward. Change is inevitable. We have to be ready for it. That certainly doesn't mean that we shouldn't use technology or try innovative things, but everything comes with a long-term cost that we need to include in our calculations. Another trend that we're seeing is vendor consolidation. A lot of the commercial firms supporting libraries are being bought out and merged together. And this has the potential to raise the costs of using commercial software. It also puts us in the uncomfortable position of outsourcing a lot of the skilled work of the library to a third party, which in turn undermines the perceived value of libraries. And while I think that there can be a lot of value in partnering with vendors in mutually beneficial ways, I think we also have to be very careful about making ourselves obsolete and just becoming the part of the institution that pays bills for other people to provide information services. We really need to stay on top of advocating for our users and helping them find information. So with all of those things said, I think there are a number of skills that any 21st century library team should have. And note that I say team, not librarian, because not every person needs to have all of these skills. But by spreading these skills through our organizations, we create teams that can work together to solve problems. And I think we really need to think about how to do this. So first of all, there's systems administration. It's really important to understand how to run a server, how to stand up software, etc. System operations is a whole separate discipline from programming and software development. And while the skills complement each other, having some specialization in just running things safely and reliably is very valuable. Understanding web technologies is important for probably everyone in the library now, based on my arguments about using the web to reach users and administer our collections. Some understanding of how to communicate using common web technologies is valuable for everyone. Having programming skills in the library is useful not just to be able to customize and maintain open source packages like VuFind, but also for being able to automate repetitive tasks, modifying data, loading things from system to system. These types of automation are really valuable, not just for your front-facing services librarians, but also for people working with metadata like catalogers and so forth. It's a useful skill to have. And speaking of catalogers, understanding metadata is very important, not just traditional MARC records and the various flavors of XML, but also linked data and RDF, which can have significant implications in the future. Understanding how we communicate data, how we organize and arrange it. These are things that librarians have done for centuries, and we need to modernize ourselves and apply those skills to all of these new technologies. User interface design and best practices, sort of independently of just the technical details of how to implement web technology, we need to understand the best ways to use web technology to reach everyone. For example, I've already mentioned web accessibility, but it's very important that we don't exclude users on the basis of, say, a visual impairment. We need to make sure that our technology works for everyone because we are trying to help everyone within our communities. And finally, project planning and collaboration skills are vitally important because, as I said, no single person has all of these skills. We need to be able to collect a team that can do all of the things that are necessary to meet our needs and work together effectively to reach those shared goals. And that is all I had to share. I know it was a lot, but I hope it has been at least somewhat interesting and inspirational, and I would love to talk to you more. We will save questions until the end of this session, but if you want to learn more about VuFind, you can go to VuFind.org, and if you want to talk to me, feel free to reach out at damian.katz@villanova.edu, Damian Katz on Twitter. I'm always happy to talk further. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Demian, for a nice presentation. You presented things in a nutshell. very briefly. I believe that this presentation will inspire library professionals in India to try VuFind. But in India, list professionals are very familiar with Koha. Now, using Koha, they learned Ubuntu and other open source things. The same way, they will take VuFind as a spirit. With this webinar, I think more people will try VuFind. Anyway, very thank you. Next, I invite Parthasarathi,
Uh,
Professor Parthasarathi.
Vimal,
Yes, sir.
before starting my presentation, I would like to ask Demian two questions because after presentation I may forget. Okay.
Oh, sure.
So Demian, may I?
Certainly.
Okay. So as in VuFind 7.1 or 7.0, we are moving towards the Laminas, framework. So do we need to change our PHP version? What should be the minimum PHP version in case of VuFind 7.x? And second thing I want to ask that when you are saying that in 7.1 we are going for the recorded version, or merging of lot many editions of the same work under the same a kind of display arrangement, we are following there any kind of FRBR display organization kind of thing?
So the minimum PHP version for VuFind 7 will be PHP 7.2, which I think at this point is also the minimum version that's still supported by the PHP community. And regarding the record versions, this is functionality that was developed by the National Library of Finland. So it creates work keys based on uniform titles and title author combinations, and then uses those to look up related works and present them through a tab in the interface. And to be honest, I haven't spent a lot of time reviewing and polishing the code yet, so I will learn more about it myself in the very near future. It's one of my top priorities after finishing the 7.0 release. But there is a pull request that anyone can look at in the VuFind GitHub.
Okay, thank you, Demian. Next, Parthosa, he's a professor at Kalyani University. He's one of the few person in India playing with the VuFind. He actually demonstrated its potential, how to use effectively in libraries. I invite Parthosa to share his experience, and he did many things with VuFind, and we would like to listen from him what he did with the VuFind and how much effective in our Indian context. Welcome, sir, to start present.
It's an acid test for me because in presence of the lead developer of VuFind, I'm talking something on VuFind. It's definitely it's an audacity. So first of all, forgive me for that audacity. Second thing, I would like to convey you that I am presently in this lockdown phase. I am staying in a network poor zone away from the metro cities. So what I did, I uploaded my 30-minute presentation in YouTube and given link to the coordinator. So I would like to request Joydeep to start that link, because if I start a live presentation from here, it will be difficult to handle for you. So please, Joydeep.
Hello, I welcome you all in this webinar. Hello, I welcome you all in this webinar on VuFind, open source and the power of community. We are fortunate enough to have Demian Katz with us. He is not only the lead developer of VuFind, I consider him as the role model of future librarianship. And so it is very difficult to present something on VuFind in front of the lead developer of VuFind. You can understand, but still I am trying my best. So my topic is VuFind and India. VuFind at India in India. What we are doing and what we are trying to do, and what is the future of this very promising open source library discovery system. For the record, the VuFind initiative started in this subcontinent. This subcontinent, I mean Bharat, Pakistan, then Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, the entire Indian subcontinent, what we call. The first initiative started in Bangladesh. Brak University, their ISA Abid library, first implemented VuFind way back in 2011. That particular library contributed the Koha VuFind driver, which is basically linking Koha at the back end and VuFind in the front end. So that driver they developed and contributed to the resource pool of VuFind in 2013. But unfortunately, they are still using VuFind 2.2, whereas we are in the release series 6.x and 7.0 is in the pipeline. In India, what we are doing, I will be telling you. But before that, let me explain, because there are lots of youngsters actually taking part in this webinar, and most of the esteemed colleagues from different libraries are also there here. So I will take this as an opportunity to tell you that what VuFind can do for us. You see, in the if you take any open any academic library in India, be it a college library, be it a university library, or be it a research or special library, we are basically working in silos. Suppose here my user is here. I am using, suppose, an array of open source software to provide different kind of library services. I have Koha at the back end to provide library open, Winston to handle different kind of e-resources, e-books, etc. This space I am having for offering, institutional digital repository services. And apart from this in-house databases, web-enabled databases, a typical academic library may have different kind of external resources like subscribe resources, electronic databases, different kind of open access resources we are providing nowadays. Because almost 100% of the knowledge objects will be made available in open access channel by 2030. That is estimated by a group of researchers in Harvard University recently. So you see, we are offering a bouquet of information services to our users, but these are available as non-related silos. So if my user need a book, they need to go to Koha. If they need an ebook, they can come to Greenstone. If they need a full text thesis, they need to go for this space. Then you can easily understand that this will be repeated for any number of journal portals, any number of electronic databases, or any number of open access resources we are handling. Unfortunately, most of this back-end service providing software are using different retrieval techniques and different metadata schema at the core. So as a user, suppose I am a user of an academic library, I am facing a steep learning curve. I need to know different retrieval techniques of the different retrieval software utilized by the library. Then I need to move from one silo to another silo, then another silo to have a comprehensive search on all aspects or all formats of the documents the library is having or library is subscribing. Take it from me as a user of an active user of a library. When we search in a kind of library database, we do not think whether it's a book. Format is not important. If the information is coming from the book is welcome. If it is coming from the full text, this is also welcome. So when a user searching a particular library interface, they do not much care about the format or from where it is coming. But in place of that expectation or against that expectation, we are offering them different kind of retrieval silos. So the future possibly a single. So this can be termed as multi-point retrieval system. That is the present situation in Indian academic libraries. In place of that, we are now going towards the integrated layer retrieval or a single point retrieval system. In the recent future, it may happen, where all my internal databases have available backend services like Koha, Greenstone, Displace, all will be integrated. And if I need full text searching also, then I can integrate a full text extractor like Apachetica. Then all my external resources and subscribe resources can be integrated through API. And VuFind has got a beautiful, a mechanism that is called query forwarding mechanism. Any number of services I can group and I can integrate in the user interface. So there in future, everything can be available from a single discovery layer, and it will be Google-like simple and at the same time opaque-like elegant. At any point of time, user can move up to call the advanced search interface and do different kind of complex retrieval performance. So right from 2013 we started this initiative, and VuFind community helped me in a great extent to configure or to learn all this kind of things. So before going into much more details about my presentation, let me very quickly show you how we can integrate different kind of retrieval silos inside our VuFind, and then I will come back again to this presentation. Say, I'm just trying to show you a real life example, because many of the library professionals expect that the part for the operational part of retrieval discovery system will also be available as a GUI, but that is not the case. All kind of performance and operation you need to do in a terminal based system, and the result or the product of that particular performance will be available as web-enabled services. So this is a confusion. There is a confusion of this, because in most of the open source software we use in Indian subcontinent are providing the GUI based operational activities. So let me show you how can we do that. So I'm calling. Okay. Now suppose I'm just trying to replicate here a real-time situation. Suppose this is my OPAC. My user can come here and can search book. Now Koha we are using most of the academic libraries in India. We started using that way back from 2007-8. Then Koha eventually become supportive to different kind of open standards. So one of them is the VIPME standard. You can make Koha compatible with VIPME. Let me show you. So I can call different kind of verbs related to this one. You can see here I can call OAI.pl and verb is equal to identify. So Koha can respond all 6, so suppose all 6 OIPMH verbs are now supported by Koha. I can call any verb and it will be responding. Now for the last for 4-5 years, Koha is also trying to become ILSDI compatible. Let me show you that this is ILSDI.pl in Koha, and Koha presently supporting all almost all ILSDI functionalities. There are altogether 25 functionalities. Koha supports almost all 18, and rest they have actually transferred the responsibility. They have transferred to OIPMH. So these are the ILSDI level. There are 4 levels: level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. So you can check that what are the functionalities supported by Koha. So suppose recall item or cancel recall is not yet supported by Koha. So what is ILSDI? ILSDI is a protocol which can help us to make a link between Koha instance or any ILS instance with the discovery layer. So the full form of ILSDI is Integrated Library System hyphen Discovery Interface. So you can link any ILSDI compatible or compliant open source, open source or closed source ILS with any kind of discovery system like VuFind, Blacklight, extensible catalog, etc. So that is the beauty of the protocol. In real time, it can fetch bibliographical item related information. That is whether this book is available or not, whether it is issued or not, when it will be due, and all kind of OPAC-like functionalities now can be supported through VuFind or any discovery layer. So this is all about Koha. Koha is ready with OIPMH and ILSDI. So suppose most of the libraries in India also use Greenstone. So that is the Greenstone 3 we are using. Greenstone is also fortunately OIPMH compatible. So here you can see this is the I am running Greenstone in my local host. It is also OIPMH compatible. So all the VAPs, OIPMH VAPs are supported by this one. So similarly, DSpace I am having, and DSpace is also OIPMH compatible. Now, in normal situation, what my user will be doing, they will go to Koha OPAC for book, they will come to Greenstone for ebook, they will go for full text thesis or faculty publication to DSpace. Instead of that, we can make a single window search interface for my user. So this is presently blank. Let me show you, although this is not a tutorial, but let me give you an idea that what can be done with this. So I am now calling my terminal. You see all these three components I will be linking: Koha, Greenstone, and DSpace very easily. So first I am calling or retrieving. So any discovery interface has got three major part. One is called the harvester, which collects or gathers data. One is the indexer, which will index all kind of data. VuFind is using Apache Solr for that purpose, and a user interface, which what you can see in the screen. So I'm now calling Koha. So I'm calling the harvester. It will interact with Koha. As Koha OIPM is compatible, it can feed data back to VuFind as a harvester. So possibly this Koha instance got around 35 records. Now you see VuFind snatch all 37 records from that Koha. Now I will harvest from DSpace. So same command, but the section name is DSpace. I have to define the sections inside oi.ini in VuFind. You all know from the manual of VuFind. So you see, in the lighting speed, it actually harvested all 20 records from my DSpace. Now the last one I am harvesting, that is Greenstone, the same command. So here section name is GSDL3. So it snatched around 11 records from Greenstone. So DSpace and Greenstone, you can also go by collection wise. That entire DSpace or Greenstone, I don't want to harvest. I want to harvest a specific collection. That is also possible through section declaration. Now all these are available. Now you see here in the VuFind, this is the home folder of VuFind. Here under local harvest folder, now these three folders are available: DSpace, GSDL3, Koha. If I go to Koha, you see all 37 available in mark XML format. Now I want to index Koha. So what I will do, from the same interface, I will call the indexing script batch import mark.sh, then the section name. So it will now index all 37. And you see in this particular folder, VuFind is taking one record at a time, indexing it, and actually transferring this record to the process directory. So after the indexing process will be over, every single record in this particular directory will be moved to the process directory. Same thing will be happening with Greenstone and DSpace. So let us wait a bit. Meanwhile, let me tell you that We can even go for the full text indexing if a particular ebook is attached with your Koha record, that is the tag number 856. But I am not utilizing here Apachetica as a full text indexer because it will take time for obvious reason. That is not quite suitable for a 30-minute demonstration. So we are almost done. As Mark XML is a very comprehensive, metadata schema, it is taking a little bit of time, but that won't be happening with the lightweight schema like Dublin Core. So now you can see that one by one records are going to the process directory. So next we will be indexing all the records harvested by VuFind from this space and Brimstone 3. Then we will be showing you that what is the result of this process. So done. Now I am moving to this space folder to show you that the same thing happening here also. So now I am this time I need to call batch import XSL file. Then I have to give the section name DSpace. Then I have to call the properties file DSpace.properties. There we can define what particular XSL file it will be using for indexing, then what is the collection name and everything. So you see here what happens. Now the same thing is happening in a lightning speed. Now we are again moving to Greenstone. That is the last one. So I'm clearing the scheme and script, but this time the section name will be GSTL3 and properties will be GSTL3 dot properties. So now all 11 records indexed within second. Now you see what is the result. Now the counts the moment of 2. Now if instead of this Koha, then Greenstone, then this space, now I can provide this search interface to my user, and if I refresh it, you see what happens. So now all records I can have. If I click the typical VuFind retrieval interface, it can by definition, every library professional knows that retrieval is a mixture of a judicious mixture of search and browse. So VuFind is an excellent retrieval tool which supports search, advanced search, as well as the browsing, different browsing trees. So for example, I can browse by call number, I can browse by language, or here you see I can browse by collection. I harvested 3 things. Library OPAC from Koha, DSpace and Greenstone. So section name you can give, and that section name will be reflected here. Let us search something. So I am searching on web, a very generic search in entire Koha discovery. So it can show me that this is a full text document coming from DSpace. This is a again full text document. This is a book coming from Koha OPAC, and in real time I can see the availability of holdings. That is the holdings data. So these 2 books are available, and both are available for issuing. I can place a hold. So this is what I am using here to connect Koha and VuFind is simple Koha driver, but we can also opt for ILSDL driver, multi backend driver. I will be coming to that. Now VuFind also provides a combined search. Say for example, I am searching here OF or farming. So it will be retrieving. You see what happens. So this is called bento box search. So if I am searching web or farming, so it is saying that these are the books available from libraries and database. These are the faculty publications available from Displace repository, and these are the ebooks available from Gridstone. So this is called a combined search interface of VuFind, very advanced level. Any number of column and rows you can create. So presently I am having only 3 columns because I have at the back end I am having 3 entities, one from Koha, one from Displace, and one from Gridstone. So if I can click here for more catalog result or more repository result or more result from LFL ebooks, etc. So this is the advantage. I don't want to, my users don't have to go different retrieval silos. They don't want to have run from pillar to post. Now this VuFind interface we can integrate with e-learning packages also. Say for example, this is a module we are using. Now here you can see, so library discovery interface. So this is the called LTI interoperability standard. Through LTI, you can add any number of search services inside Moodle. Now suppose I am searching web in all field from the VuFind. So right from the same interface, my user or my learner from e-learning system, share Moodle we are using, so they can have all a result from VuFind directly inside the Moodle interface. Anyone that they can check from here, and they can go for it. So this is the advantage. I hope you can understand. Let us go back to the presentation mode again. So now you understand that what is the advantage of an integrated retrieval by using library discovery system like VuFind in place of the present retrieval silos in academic libraries. So what we did so far now, I actually got attached to VuFind right from 2013. It's almost 6-7 years. So during this period, we developed one special issues, and I'm thankful to CSIR. They invited us to prepare a special issue on library discovery system. You all know the name of this particular library journal, very famous in India, Annals of Librarian Information Studies. And Demian helped us extensively. Not only he contributed a paper in this particular issue, but he also guided us how to go for the special issue on discovery systems and many more things. So we are very much thankful and grateful to Mr. Demian Katz. Other publications we did during this period, one is the Designing Web-Scale Discovery System VuFind. It was published in Library High Tech, where we actually compared VuFind with other 2 competitive open source software. One is the Blacklight and another is the Extensible Catalog. So we took different parameters: organization, indexing, search interfaces, advanced search interfaces, backend technologies, different kind of enhanced search option like geodetic search, etc. So we compared, we prepared almost 45 to 50 different parameters under 5 groups, and then we compared Blacklight, Extensible Catalog, and VuFind. VuFind came with a flying color against this particular comparative study, and this is a very well accepted paper in the LIS domain internationally. Then recently we published a paper on SpaceCat, so that multi-backend driver kind of thing we have applied for ISRO libraries along with the help of one of my students working there. So this paper published in World Digital Libraries, how to design a virtual union catalog for a group of interrelated organizations. We translated the VuFind in Bengali language, and the Bengali language translations are available inside VuFind or the VuFind release cycle right from the version 3.0.1. Recently, with the help of students and scholars, Mr. Nurul Alam of ISRO Library, they developed PRL Library, Physical Research Laboratory. They developed in the interface of VuFind, and we also contributed that one in the VuFind release cycle. It is now included from version 6.1 onwards. Then the multi-backend driver is successfully implemented. We are thankful to Demian and Array Mozilla for their active help in setting this multi-backend driver for our purpose. Multi-backend driver is already available in the VuFind release cycle. So we tuned a bit to suit our requirement. So we have many instances of Koha at the backend, instance 1, 2, 3, and any number. So these are all VIP image compatible. Each of these having a single, Koha ILS DI driver. So this driver in front of this driver, we prepared a proxy driver kind of thing, multi-backend driver, which is already available inside VuFind, tuned a bit, and finally we can fetch real-time item level status from each of these instances in one go. So by using that particular thing, we developed SpaceCat. So you can see all libraries are included, all ISRO libraries, and anyone if search, so suppose someone search something. So this book is available from VSSC library, and this book is available from ISRO headquarter library. So in the same interface, I like IntCat or WorldCat. They are having all the bibliographic resource information, but we can generate both metadata level information, that is the availability of the document, as well as the availability of the copy in that particular library in real time by using ILS-DI interface of Koha and ILS-DI driver of VuFind by using the multi-backend driver at the front end. So all kind of OPEC functionalities are also possible to replicate inside VuFind interface. So my user, by using the same OPEC credential, that is login and password, they can enter through VuFind. They can check their find statement, their search history, their historical history. They can place hold. So everything what you can do in a library OPEC, now you can do in the VuFind interface. And and at the same time you can have resources coming from different other services from the library. So VuFind can easily replace OPEC of many library automation software, and the trend is that the Qualiole or the in the LSP in the pipeline Folio, they won't be having a OPEC kind of thing. So they will expose their metadata over VIP image, and a discovery system like VuFind will provide the search result. Already a folio driver, the grant came to VuFind community, and Demian Katz is actively working on it to provide a driver which can interact folio and VuFind in future. Was Bengal Library Association came up with WebLibNet. So presently they are covering 9 libraries. So all 9 libraries are can be searched from the center single index by using VuFind. The web address you can see from here, weblibnet.dlhl.org/VuFind. So I do hope that college libraries will be part of this great initiative taken by Bengal Library Association. Other things we are trying to do here, that is the geodetic search and other thing. Recently, NDL, National Digital Library, called us for their recent international seminar on digital library, knowledge engineering. So there I presented that how VuFind can be utilized as a geodetic search interface, where apart from utilizing different kind of Boolean operators and linking them, suppose I want to retrieve iron ore books related to iron ore in different parts of India. So the present situation is that I can give iron and place X or place Y or place Z and so on. So in place of that kind of thing, we can integrate the geographical map inside it. So every bit of it is based on open source. Leaflet is basically the JavaScript library. Map is coming from OpenStreetMap, and this is working. NDL is very much interested. Possibly they are going to implement this technology inside their interface in recent future. We started one special software elective on library service platform, where one unit is completely dedicated to library discovery. That is available for the final semester student. Recently, with the Department of Library Information Science, Jaipur University, we trying to develop one open source curricula on library discovery system. There will be 5 units, and the entire courseware will be available free of cost on Moodle platform. So So it is in the pipeline. It will be supported by 4-quadrant approach. That is, each topic will be supported by text, presentation, video tutorial, further reading list, and a kind of evaluation, MCQ-based evaluation. So we are very hopeful that it will be coming up after this lockdown phase is over. So our course presently we are offering, that is also available in Moodle. Any one of you who are interested can take part. We will be opening this course from the August onwards, after the when the final semester examination and evaluation part will be over. And I already show you that how VuFind can be integrated effectively inside different other systems like Moodle. Road ahead. We need more translation in IndexIt. Nowadays, people are taking much more interest in VuFind from different parts of the country. So we need to form a user group, and we need to go for this translation of VuFind. So far, many college libraries and only a few university libraries are using VuFind. So we need to motivate elite educational institutes like IITs, NITs, that they can go for VuFind in place of the costly commercial discovery services. They are all using discovery services, but those are very costly. For example, some software is taking rupees 60 lakhs per annum, and that is on the basis of SaaS model, software as a service. So they are taking 12 to 16 lakhs per annum for that kind of service, which we can do with the VuFind in the same way, and in some cases in a better way, almost free of cost. VuFind need to be included into the curricula of LIS schools in India. We are trying hard. I am trying to motivate many of my colleagues in different library schools in the country. For example, Central University Gujarat recently included VuFind, and I promised them to take a series of online workshops on VuFind. So comprehensive training workshop required, VuFind user meets in India with the critical mass gathered, and the complete package of Koha, Displace, Brainstorm, Omeka, Moodle, VuFind on Ubuntu or Debian in a pre-configured way. So that means that user don't have to connect the dots. It will be available in a pre-configured way and off-the-shelf product, so that they can right from the day one they can utilize VuFind or practice on VuFind. We are in the process of developing such one on Ubuntu LTS 20.04. Possibly within a month we will be uploading in source code or GitHub. Now, expectation from VuFind in Indian subcontinent, as Demian is present here. Let me put forward these expectations. More tutorials on different aspects of VuFind, and it is not possible for the core developer of VuFind to do that. So more user participation required. We are ready to offer our help for developing that kind of tutorials. Emphasis on interoperability. So possibly the virtual learning in the academic sector is the new normal now. So VuFind needs to support different kind of learning tools interoperability. I have shown you the one-way integration of VuFind in Moodle, but the other way integration, right from VuFind, I can select a book that will be reflected in my Moodle. That kind of both way, linking requires LTI support. So VuFind community already opened up a Jira ticket on it. Let's hope for the best. All VuFind enthusiasts in Indian subcontinent should come together to form a user group for effective transfer of knowledge, and easier process to include different kind of external services like book reader, text analysis services, etc. Different tabs. That is also our expectation. And better and more efficient use of linked open data, particularly authority data sets. VuFind already supports authority data sets, in a beautiful way, but still there are many linked open data sets are available, and that we can utilize inside VuFind. And easy integration of cultural and heritage object metadata like Lido, Spectrum, Midas, CDW, etc. alongside the learning object metadata like LOM, LRMI, CANCOR, GEMS, etc. very easily inside VuFind. So if these things are happening in the coming futures, VuFind will be a champion, and another revolution just we did with Koha can happen in India with VuFind. So that's all from my side. Thank you, Demian, for joining us. Thank you, BLA, for conducting this kind of workshop.
Thank you, Partho sir, for a nice presentation. Anyway, your presentations in many places made a very good insight into VuFind. That was a many people knew about its capabilities of VuFind through your presentation. I could present your sessions many places. I felt the same directly. Anyway, thank you, sir. Next, we have few questions here. Question one is asked by Ramasamy. Koha also has many searching functionalities. In what way VuFind is different or better than Koha?
Who will answer this? Demian?
So the issue is that Koha is only searching the contents of Koha, whereas VuFind can be layered on top of Koha and then can also combine those search results with records from multiple other systems. Also, as I mentioned, by using a separate layer for your user search experience than for your ILS, you give yourself more flexibility, because if in a few years something new comes along that you like better than Koha, you could potentially change your system without changing your user experience.
So can I answer this by using my screen so that it can be little bit of clear? Let me try.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Can you see it?
Yes, sir. No,
Hello?
okay. Yeah, very visible, very well. Yeah.
Okay. So suppose the question asked is that Koha is actually providing us the catalog database. Actually, at the back end, we have Mark 21 metadata schema. Now, in an academic library, there is not only Koha. You are having Koha as a Koha OPAC for book. Then you may have your Greenstone like this for ebooks or different other collection. Then you can have Displays. Then you can have any number of journal portals, any number of electronic databases. So nowadays, as Demian said, modern libraries are offering an array of information services. So it may, and those information services are basically trapped under different retrieval silos. So for example, in my library, Koha has no relation with Greenstone. Greenstone has no relation with Displays. As a user, I am actually running from one retrieval silo to another retrieval silo, and backend search engines are different. Koha is using Zebra retrieval engine. Greenstone here using MGPP, managing gigabyte plus. Displays is using Apache Solar. So we are actually facing a lot of demands on the from the side of the user. We are expecting too much from too much to have from a general user. They need to know backend database structure. They need to know different retrieval techniques, etc. Instead of that, instead of these three, we can provide a single window search interface by using VuFind, where people can browse and people can search. For example, you see here, suppose I have got three retrieval silos as I have shown in my presentation. Now my user is searching without going separately to different retrieval silos. I am searching here web or farming. Okay. Now this I am utilizing here a combined search interface of VuFind. Now the moment I click here, so you see what happens. Something went wrong. So suppose I am searching. Oh, my solar is. I have not started my solar. Let me start my solar first. So I have started backend solo service of VuFind. It will take a few seconds only to start. You can see it here. Now, the moment I am searching something here, wave or farming, you see what happens. My user don't have to go different search interfaces. Right from here, my system in VuFind can tell them that this particular book is coming from Central Library catalog database. This full text faculty publication is coming from distance repository, and this ebook is coming from the Greenstone server. So all we can combine here alongside different other tools, external search tools like journal portals, etc. So for example, if I go to the classical search interface of VuFind, then you see if you notice this particular query forwarding mechanism, if I go a little bit down towards, now you see my user can forward this query to different open access resources, different commercial services in the same interface. So my point is that VuFind can help us to stop our users, esteemed user, running from pillar to post. So that's all. Thank you. It worked. Your microphone is off, Vimal.
The next question is regarding plugins. How many commercial databases that is integrated with in VuFind? How many commercial database? Yes, sir. Regarding plugin, VuFind plugins driver.
So with commercial databases, there are really two possible approaches you can take for getting that information into VuFind. You can either load the data directly into VuFind's Solr index, or you can connect to some kind of an API interface to load the data dynamically. Obviously, the possibilities there will depend on what the commercial provider is willing to give you. You can't locally index the records if they will not provide them to you. But there have been some instances, for example, in Germany, a consortium of academic libraries was able to negotiate with vendors to get all of their metadata and index it into a national level VuFind instance, which many libraries share. But more commonly, you are stuck with having to request information in real time through an API. And VuFind supports that in a few ways. One way is by integrating with what are called web-scale discovery services like EDS and Summon, which for a subscription fee will give you access to an index of many full-text documents that you can search. There's also integration with EIT, the EBSCO integration toolkit, which can be used for free to search a number of EBSCO databases. Beyond that, it might be necessary to do some custom coding to integrate with other types of APIs. But in theory, as long as an API exists, VuFind contains the infrastructure that can be used to connect that into the system and display results within VuFind.
Okay, thank you. The next question is not clear. What is relevancy ranking of documentation? Can VuFind be integrated with the Web of Science collections, corpus, databases for metric study? Yeah.
So as far as addressing VuFind relevance ranking, the relevance ranking on the main Solr index that VuFind uses for search results for records that you index locally is completely configurable through some text files essentially you just assign relative ranking values to different named fields, and that controls the order of the search results. So, for example, you could say in the default search, you want author matches to be more important than subject matches, or vice versa, and so on. If you're working with third-party APIs for your searching, then the relevance ranking is generally controlled by that external service and whatever facilities they provide to let you control it. As far as Web of Science and Scopus, VuFind does not currently have direct integration with those services, though I believe that Scopus has an API that might be suitable for integration. It's just something that hasn't been implemented because the need hasn't arisen within the community yet. But it's something that could be investigated.
I have a question. From the library professional side, trying VuFind is very difficult. The reason is that very difficult to install VuFind, not like Koha. But we need some learning tools like live DVD from VuFind official live DVD, or any VirtualBox images to learn or try VuFind by library science students and professionals.
So I mentioned recently that the VuFind community call that takes place every month has started recording tutorial videos. And so the first video in that series was about the installation of VuFind, and it shows you both how to install using a Debian package under Ubuntu, which you can do in a virtual box, and it also shows you how to install it using Vagrant. So both of those approaches, if you follow along with the video, can get you a working instance of VuFind in just a few minutes. There is also a live DVD that's been developed by HealthNet Nepal, which includes a working instance of VuFind, and there's a link to that available through the VuFind wiki. So there are some starting points, and perhaps part of the problem is just raising awareness that these things exist.
Yeah. My another question to Parthos sir. In other countries, these things managed by, especially system side managed by technology librarian or system administrator. In India, no support for librarians. They have to manage themselves. For example, installation of Koha, they have to manage alone. In the case of VuFind, they cannot manage alone. Any options or solutions to extend these services to all libraries? For example, through InfluNet or any other government agencies.
Okay. So one good news I can share with you is that the next Monday I am having a meeting with Director InfluNet on the use of VuFind as the front end of IntCat. So presently IntCat is not providing you the real-time item level status. So how VuFind can be utilized to generate real-time item level status from different ILSs available throughout the 1,000+ universities in India. So I'm having a very important meeting there. So my point is that there is not a direct answer for your question, because if you compare the LIS education structure of the foreign countries like US, UK, etc., and in India, we are having a few only dual degree holder. So Demian himself is a dual degree holder. He is BS Computer Science and then MLS. So that kind of convergence of skills are not available in the Indian LIS education scenario. But still, I think that if you have will say at the age of 50, I am learning every day VuFind. Almost every day I am discovering new areas in VuFind. So if we have learning intention to learn something, then I don't think it will be very difficult. For example, I am saying one thing in compare with your Koha installation and Vue installation. If you follow the detailed instruction of VuFind installation after you are having a LAMP architecture, Apache, MySQL and PHP, it's only a 5-step you just copy that one from the documentation and you place in the terminal. So that kind of thing. The real problem is not the installation. The real problem is the connecting VuFind with different kind of
Yes,
back-end tools. In most of the cases, our experience with open source software is that the operational part is also performed through GUI, but unfortunately that is not available for VuFind, and for the right reason, because in the terminal end, in the dollar prompt, you are getting lot many other options, lot many other facilities and freedom. So VuFind, the real difference is that in case of Koha, Displace, Greenstone, your operational part and your retrieval part both are on the web. But in case of VuFind, most of the backend operation you have to do from the terminal, as I tried to show in my video. So that there lies the problem. And I am also planning, as Demian told, that I will prepare lot many 10-15 minutes video on different aspects of connecting the dots in VuFind, how you can connect with Greenstone, and ready-made solutions available already inside VuFind. And this way, hybrid kind of library professionals will be coming up in the 5-10 years. Already, the sign is already showing you are coming up. Then Vinod and many other people are coming up. So if you people take interest, then I can share all of my knowledge with you. Demian is I consider him as a role model in this future librarianship, because not only that he is the lead developer. He is not the lead developer of VuFind, but he is a librarian at the core and do understand what the problems a library professional may face. Because during the authority data set, I personally understood that he is really a gem of a person. So this kind of open source community can help us to learn, to implement in different other places. Another thing is that in case of Koha, Displace, and Greenstone, you have the extra responsibility to back up and to restore at the time of emergency. VuFind, for my last 6-7 years of experience, it's a very lightweight software. You don't have to care at all about the backend, about the backup. So in fact, anything going wrong, you just delete everything, the solar index, reharvest, reindex. So that kind of you are not under any kind of mental pressure. What will happen to my data? Your data is with at the back end. Anytime you can generate the index. So that's my
thank you, sir.
Publish.
Okay, about one and a half hour is over. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Demian and Parthasarathi, and I pass my baton to Joydeep sir to conclude the session.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, especially Mr. Demian, for giving us his kind consent for presentation and staying in this lecture. So once again, I just thank on behalf of Bengal Library Association to you, especially to you. Thank you again to Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay. According to his inspiration, his instruction, we'll install the VuFind and develop our Union catalog in West Bengal. And we just try to enhance our scope to India. So once again, I just thank on behalf of Bengal Library Association to Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay. I just want to thank to Mr. Vimal Kumar Bhajapallai of Mahatma Gandhi University Library, Kerala. When we have approached him to be a moderator and coordinator in this program, he accepted gladly. So thank you once again. And also we express our sincere thanks to all the participants coming from all around the country and also from Bangladesh. And before we end, we have an announcement. Tomorrow we have a big program at 11:30 a.m. The topic is web-based teaching and learning opportunities and challenges. The speaker is one and only Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay. So please be with us. And once again, thank you and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.